a lot of limitations happen on Bitcoin miner. So a lot of, complex computation needs to happen off-chain. But if you need to unload this off-chain computation to Bitcoin network, you will need zero-knowledge proof. And we are one of the fastest zero-knowledge virtual machine in the industry to enable the layer 2, all the transaction on layer 2 can be, generated in real time, the zero-knowledge proof. I think that's a very fundamental part to guarantee the network security. And the second part is that since there's a limitation on the network, on the Bitcoin miner, you cannot do too much, and also you cannot verify this zero-knowledge proof. We also need another component which is called BitVM2. That's a very advanced technology to enable the ZKP can be verified and be finalized on Bitcoin miner. And if there are any disputes happening, the Bitcoin miners can decide if that, block or that transaction is valid or not.
This episode of the Bitcoin Economy is brought to you in part by Ledn.
Need cash but don't want to sell your Bitcoin? Ledn is the global leader in Bitcoin-backed loans, issuing over 9 billion loans since 2018. And they were the first to offer proof of reserves.
With Ledn, you get custody loans, no credit checks, no monthly payments, and more. Visit ledn.io for more information. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Economy. We are here in Hong Kong for Bitcoin Asia, alongside Kevin Liu from Goat Network, who is the founder and CEO. First and foremost, we are the Bitcoin economy, right? And so we talk about, hey, what do you do with your Bitcoin? You don't just, it's great that the price goes up and down, of course, but ultimately there is this burgeoning economy with yield, credit cards, and so forth. So I would love to hear first and foremost what the Goat Network is.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Yes, my name is Kevin Liu. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Goat Network. Actually, Goat Network is building a layer on top of Bitcoin to scale Bitcoin, to have more use case, more usage. So our goal actually is to make Bitcoin flow, so all the ecosystem can benefit from a much more active ecosystem. Yeah, that's basically what Goat Network is aiming for. Back to your question, a lot of people are holding Bitcoin and expect Bitcoin can go up, the price can go up forever. But I don't think it's gonna happen if we don't have a very active Bitcoin chain underneath, because the security assumption is based on, like how many incentives these Bitcoin miners can have. If the Bitcoin halving keeps happening, the incentive for the Bitcoin miners actually is decreasing. So actually they need a much more, healthy revenue model, not just the mining rewards. They also need to gain rewards from the transaction fees. I saw the data that for now, the daily transaction fee only occupies like 1% or 2% of all the Bitcoin miners' revenue, daily revenue. That's too, low. In the peak time, which is the BRC20, that time is occupied like 75% of the revenue. So I don't think that's gonna happen. But in the middle, I hope we can find a mixture revenue model for the miner, which the Bitcoin needs more usage, need more transactions, and to make it more active. Yeah, that's part of the.
So I think you brought up a good point, and we see a lot of the miners today, even like Marathon's being a prominent force out there, where they're having to get into different energy. They're repurposing effectively like different revenue models and different revenue streams, like you mentioned. So for the folks that are out there, I know it's kind of a tough subject, because I think there's the Bitcoin maxis that don't want anything to change, right? Then I think there's this new group of people that are starting to come out, and I've talked to quite a few actually, that are looking to bring on those additional layers now. So what exactly is this bringing now yield for if I have Bitcoin, like in basic terms, for those that may not be super technical, for instance, what exactly are you doing with it? So like if I have Bitcoin, how can I leverage the Goat Network?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question. Basically, let's jump to the conclusion first. Basically, with Goat Network, you can have a native security layer to enable you to have your Bitcoin, you have your private key, no one control your assets. I think that's a very important one and very fundamental one. with that as a foundation, the Bitcoin you hold can have more use cases on Go Network, and you can earn different kind of yield. Let's say if you don't like risk, you can just put a time lock on it, just like a fixed term, deposit. You can have like 1.5 or 2 APY for your locked Bitcoin. But if you like risk,
Crazy.
you like to stake, to borrow land, and current offering on Go Network can offer like 30%, even 50% APY. Yes. But how we do that, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know where the yield coming from, you are the yield. So basically, it comes down to the very fundamental technical layer, which we enable the sustainable yield and native yield. The first one, as I mentioned, we need to provide native security. So it means, a lot of limitations happen on Bitcoin miners. So a lot of complex computation needs to happen off-chain. But if you need to unload this off-chain computation to Bitcoin network, you will need zero-knowledge proof. And we are one of the fastest zero-knowledge virtual machine in the industry to enable the layer 2, all the transaction on layer 2 can be, generated in real time, the zero-knowledge proof. I think that's a very fundamental part to guarantee the network security. And the second part is that since there's a limitation on the network, on the Bitcoin miner, you cannot do too much, and also you cannot verify this zero-knowledge proof. We also need another component which is called BitVM2. That's a very advanced technology to enable the ZKP can be verified and be finalized on Bitcoin miner. And if there are any disputes happening, the Bitcoin miners can decide if that block or that transaction is valid or not. So these two actually is a combination to inherit the Bitcoin native security to make Bitcoin layer 2 an extension of Bitcoin, not just side system of Bitcoin.
Right.
And this is very technical fundamental stuff. And based on that, the layer 2 itself actually it needs to be decentralized as well. You cannot rely on a centralized layer 2 and say, hey, we don't control any of your assets. Your assets is secure. That doesn't make sense. So on Go Network, we're leveraging the decentralized sequencers. Sequencer is something like the Bitcoin miners. They need to produce block for the layer 2 and to gain the gas fee for the sequencer node. And the gas fee on layer 2 on our Go Network is Bitcoin as well. So there's a very interesting economic model, which is the more transaction happening, the more blocks it has, the more BTC gas fee these sequencer nodes can earn. So that's actually where the yield coming from. The whole network revenue, the whole economic activity accumulation, which come down to the Bitcoin gas revenue. And we share that revenue to all the BTC holders, BTC ecosystem participants. Yeah, that's why we can, safely say that 1.5 to 2% for the deposit product and more yield for more, risk profile product. That's the, I think it's very sustainable and it's very, positive feedback loop. The more transactions, the higher yield, actually.
What if you could lower your tax bill and stack Bitcoin at the same time? Well, now you can with Blockware. New tax guidelines from the Big Beautiful Bill will allow American miners to write off 100% of the cost of their mining hardware for a single tax year. That's right, 100%. Blockware's mining as a service allows you to do everything from securing the miners to sourcing low-cost power to configuring the mining pool. They do it all. You get to stack Bitcoin at a discount every single day while also saving for the upcoming tax season. Get started today by going to mining.blockwaresolutions.com/TBE. Again, that's mining.blockwaresolutions.com/TBE. Now back to the interview.
Yeah.
The 30 to 50% sounds incredible. It's almost like meme coin territory, right? But that is phenomenal to hear. And then are these mostly like retail users, or are you finding yourselves talking to institutions that are looking to yield, or even the mining companies that you mentioned?
Yeah, actually, we have talked to all of them, big and small. We understand they have different kind of risk profile. just as I mentioned, some of the institutions, they have their own internal control, their risk profile, so they cannot move their BTC to another layer. And I think it will take time for them to accept all this kind of new technology, new concept. So we start from some, let's say, DeFi user, which they already have BTC on chain, and they have some experience, some risk. They would like to try something new.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also some custodian companies which they have the pressure to look for yield for their custom. So they're also willing to take on some of these product offerings. So back to your question, I think what we offer is rich profile of BTC5 products to satisfy different demands from different users, big and small. Yeah.
And you mentioned you're from Canada in Toronto. I'm not too far in New York, but how have you found like the global, policies that are taking place? Obviously, with President Trump, he's been pretty pro Bitcoin, but things are still taking time, right? The governments never move fast. I believe Canada, more or less, has been a little bit slower and not the most friendly. So, are you guys global, and you just happen to live in Toronto? And then, what do you see, kind of like over the next 6 to 12 months, how some of the policy changes could affect your business?
Yes, actually, I live in Toronto, but this company is global, and the developer company for Go Network actually is incorporated in Delaware. So we're a U.S. company, actually. Yeah, but with branches and team members spanning globally. For the policy part, Canada, is always the slowest. Yeah, and also the tax is not friendly as well. So I won't expect too much change in the next 6 to 12 months. But I will expect that a lot of new stuff gonna happen in Asia, which is the most active community globally. And I also hope there some change can happen on the BTC ETF, because there's so many BTC holding by ETF. I think the next big problem for them is that how to generate yield. They cannot just hold it forever.
That was going to be actually my next question is we see all this Bitcoin treasury, this proliferation now, where I've seen like coffee shops, that are now buying Bitcoin, calling themselves Bitcoin treasury companies. So for some of the smaller ones, like, Strategy obviously has a massive lead on everyone else. And there's like Marathon, Metaplanet, obviously the sponsor here right now. And you were talking about the tax situation. That's why Metaplanet's been like really interesting for a lot of Japanese, because I think it's like 55% tax to sell your Bitcoin, or versus with Metaplanet, it's basically capital gains. So do you foresee like treasury companies, like some of the smaller ones, leveraging this and, being transparent with the buyers, but like they're like, hey, we're not going to catch Strategy, but we're going to have some upside here with the yield? Has that been in conversations?
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. I see this training actually is happening. There won't be just company buy Bitcoin, store there, and wait forever. I don't think that's gonna happen to every company. If that's new DAT company, they want to make a difference. Actually, they need to look for either new technology or new yield strategy. So that would make much difference, a lot of more difference. As Strategy, they just hold, right? They have no way to generate yield. But if there's a company, they can have a stable way to generate yield. That's a huge difference, Yeah, so I would expect this can happen.
Well, we're seeing Strategy kind of find different ways to attract new buyers too. Like, they have Stride, Stripe, Strike. Metaplanet's doing a preferred offering now as well. And I was just reading an article that they said like Metaplanet's probably one of the last ones to be able to do this preferred, because I don't know if there's enough liquidity to go around to all of these different treasury companies necessarily. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So we're here at the conference. What are you most excited about? What do you hope to gain from the conference this year?
Yeah, actually, I did several speeches already yesterday. The one thing I hope to see or I hope to convey is actually, I understand for a lot of Bitcoin hardcore community, they don't like any changes to the hardcore parts. So for our layer 2, I don't think we want to change anything in the hardcore part, but we really want to bring value to the whole community. That, as I expressed, if everyone holds Bitcoin, no one use it. That's a huge risk for the whole infra, for the whole security assumption. So that's the message I keep delivering to the whole audience, that actually we need to make Bitcoin flow, to make the ecosystem more active, and the more transaction happening on layer 2 on scaling solution, the more settlement will be finalized on Bitcoin, and it's the Bitcoin miners gonna get benefit finally. So I think that's the key thing I hope to see. Hope there's some change in the mindset that Bitcoin layer 2 is here to help. We're not trying to take anyone's benefit, and also this is a must to have. We really need a vivid ecosystem. Yes.
I would tend to agree overall too. I think we're seeing with any technology, it proliferates and it advances, and as long as security remains prevalent and the most important piece here, I think that you guys will go far. And so thanks so much for coming on. I guess anything else you want to share that I didn't touch on with our audience?
Oh, actually, as a Bitcoin layer 2 scaling solution, we actually actively invest in Bitcoin as well. Okay. During the last year, yes, we accumulate like 34 Bitcoin. Yeah, so it makes us, we spend some of our operation fund, but it turns out our operation fund is increasing, not decreasing. So we are actively putting this 34 BTC into our ecosystem development. We just newly launched this news, I think the day before yesterday or something, so yeah, we hope to see more Bitcoin financial, BTC-Fi applications coming into the ecosystem, because we're going to offer the real Bitcoin yield. Yeah. Thank you.
So as part of the Bitcoin economy, Jody and I and Sean as well, we started 21rates.com. So we haven't put Bitcoin layer 2s on quite yet, but we'll have to bring that up. I think in the next quarter or so, we'll start to bring those up as more and more. I've seen quite a few companies starting to come in the space. So I think that only helps you guys to make it more ubiquitous and overall. Well, thank you so much, Kevin Liu from the GOAT Network. Is it goat.network is the domain? Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.